first off on the Darnell Nurse thing, we won't go down that road too much. But
Sure.
I'll say this. Gazer knows this. Like, every athlete deals with stresses their own way. Maybe Stuart Skinner wants to just talk it out, talk about when he struggles, very articulate, very calm, very, dispatched from the whole thing. Maybe Darnell Nurse is angry or annoyed or ticked off and wants to be short and terse. Whatever you got to do, I got no problem with Darnell Nurse. I know the media was just doing their job. I don't have him being, for a day, a bit short with them, a bit surly. You shine a spotlight on yourself. You know what's on there anyways. You play well. People will celebrate you. You play poorly when you do that, you'll get killed for it. But whatever, as long as you don't care, I don't take great offense to him doing it on a one-off because usually he's pretty accommodating. So whatever you need as an athlete to get yourself through that moment or prepare for the game, go ahead and do it. Don't worry about offending anyone. We're all a little sensitive right now in the media anyway. So I don't have any problem with that. As far as the game goes, I mean, I think several things unfolded in Game 4 that bode well if Edmonton can keep them going. One, obviously the changing in the lineup. I mean, you put in 3 new players. You take out a defenseman who basically played the entire season. You played the same 6 guys on the back end the entire year virtually. Hardly any missed games. And you put Brett Kulak on his offside with Darnell Nurse. They haven't done that very much. It was a major roll of the dice. And when the game started the way it started, you're like, oh, God, this is not going to work. Like, Kulak gets caught wide on the first goal. The second goal, unfortunately, hits Nurse in the pants. And you're thinking it's gone from bad to worse. And the series and the season is likely over. Like, that's what it felt like 7 minutes into Game 4. So I give Knoblauch and the players, Paul Coffey, a ton of credit for staying with it. And then Nurse and Kulak for having a really strong game. Like, I get the first 2 goals against, not good, especially the first one, not ideal. But
hey, that second going off his rear, like, that is a bottoming out, pun intended, but a bottoming out right there, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Imagine going back to the bench thinking, like, I can't be any worse. Like, it can't be any worse than it is right now, right? But the underlying numbers, which generally are not favorable to Darnell Nurse, very strong in Game 4. So that, really positive. The fact that they kind of sorted that out. Stuart Skinner, that save on Tyler Seguin, that would have made it 3-0. I know it kind of hit him, but, like, he kind of fought it off and made the saves and then settled down. That sort of resiliency and then the form he showed the rest of the game, also a really positive sign for Edmonton. But maybe most importantly is that, they bring in McLeod and Perry out of the press box. And generally speaking, you come out of the press box into Game 4 of a conference final, you're going in on the 4th line, on the 5th line. Like, you're not going to get to play. You're going to play 7 minutes, bit time, not really contribute to a win or a loss. You're just sort of taking a place. But no, he's got these guys that are good enough that he has enough faith in to play on the second line.
Yeah.
To play with Leon at 5-on-5 for most of the game. And you're thinking that's, again, a really big roll of the dice because, can Corey Perry play with the pace? Can he create? McLeod where his game at with the confidence? And they were really good. For Edmonton to win a pivotal game, score 5, and I know Connor had 3 points. We barely even talk about it because that's what he does. But the fact is, like, it wasn't a singularly dominant performance by Connor or Leon, and they scored 5. That is new. That is unusual. That is improvement. And I think that really bodes well for the Oilers if they can have that kind of balance in their lineup where they don't have to play. No forward play 20 minutes. That is so much better for the team if you don't have to play those guys 26 minutes.
Who's got the depth now, hey, Mike? Who's got the depth now, right?
Up front, I still might take Dallas's, respectfully, the depth, not the high end, but the depth. But I'll tell you on defense, brings me to Chris Tanev because you think about why he was so celebrated, why he's been such a perfect fit. Because he's a good player, but because a good team had a massive, obvious need for him in their top 4, right? You got Heiskanen, you got Lindell, you got Harley, and you have Tanev. And the 4 of them together play more than just about any other defenseman in the playoffs, except for, I think, Bouchard rounds out the top 5 with the most minutes. Now, can you play Ryan Suter, that matchup, those minutes, the remaining 2 or 3 games and expect the same results? Absolutely not. Petrovic, you're barely playing him now, let alone, advancing him 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Lundqvist, there's a reason why he's not in the lineup, talented guy, but you want him in your top 4? They are in a real bind. I will be curious to watch tonight how DeBoer manages his deep because, like, you're basically on a spot duty depending on the situation. And Haskin and Lindell Harley are going to play like 28 to 30 minutes because they have no obvious replacement. And if you're McDavid, Draisaitl, the offensive Edmonton, you're like, we don't like playing against that guy. He's good. Like, he's hard to play against. That's why he's valuable. He's not in there anymore. Our lives just got a little bit easier. Not easy, but easier.
Does Pete DeBoer, like we've seen Kris Knoblauch do these moves that had the whole city of Edmonton scratching their head? You mentioned the guys in the press box going to play with Leon, which is amazing, and I think it's more of a galvanizing moment for the room and for the player themselves getting that type of responsibility. But what do you see DeBoer? Do you see any line juggling or trying to get a little bit more out of his players? Because let's face it, after that, I mean, they were great for 7 minutes, and they're pretty flat for the rest of that game.
Yeah, I mean, but on the flip side, they were with the same group. They were largely dominant the last 35 minutes of Game 3. Like, it's gone both ways because both teams are good. So, like, I don't know, 2 out of 3 at home, even though they haven't been great at home in the playoffs. Like, I don't think DeBoer is going to be panicking in major line changes. They have so many good forwards and versatile forwards. They can play guys anywhere, and it wouldn't even feel like a significant change. You could put Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski back together. They were great for years, right? And, like, that would be like, okay. Like, it would be different, but it would not seem a seismic shift in philosophy or panic or anything like that. To me, Gager, it's all about what does he do on defense? Like how does – to me – we'll look at the end of the game tonight, and there will be 13 different pairings that play together at some point in tonight's game. And Haskin will play with 5 different guys. Like, he'll play 33 minutes because he can, because he has to. But I don't think, there'll be significant change. I don't think he'll be digging deep into his bag of tricks to find something that we can't predict, like maybe what Edmonton did. I think both teams sort of realize now the other guys are really good. They're also trying their best to get to the Stanley Cup final. And there are going to be moments in this series where we don't look very good because of what the opposition is doing. And it goes both ways, and you just got to work through that. And like the Oilers did, limit that to a short period of time as possible and limit the damage in those periods the best you can. And the Oilers got through 7 minutes of it. Yeah, they gave up 2, but, it didn't last a period or in Game 3, maybe 35 minutes where the Dallas Stars were a much better team.
Live from New York, it's TSN's Mike Johnson on the Nielsen Show this morning. Edmonton Sports Talk, Lieutenant Eric Joaquin Gage with you. I just wanted to go on the other bench here, Mike, and Kris Knoblauch turning into this soothsayer this postseason. But do you see not necessarily a need, but maybe a temptation for him as well to change something up tonight, however minuscule or minute, or is it just as simple as you won the game, re-rack it, and come back here?
I think you probably re-rack it. I mean, as long as you trust. And that's a big word, but if you trust CC Broberg, because on the road, unless it's an icing, like, you don't get that decision. Yeah. So you get him out there on an icing, or you get him out there and Dallas gets last change, and all of a sudden out comes whoever, Johnson's line or Hintz's line. And if you feel like you're not comfortable with that, do you want to go with Desharnais, who at least there's more experience there. There's more comfort there. He's been through more this year. That might be the only thing they consider. I don't think they do it. I don't think I would do it. I would roll it back.
Now, best of 3 here, Mike. What do you think is last game there were so many little underlining notes of what happened. What do you think is the most important thing for either team moving forward? What part of their game is going to win this series? I'm leaning kind of towards this Edmonton PK where it's just been lights out. But is there another on the Oilers side? What do you think is going to be key for either of these teams to win this thing?
Okay, so for Edmonton, don't want to overstate the obvious. Stu Skinner can't have like a bad game. Period. Like stretch. Like I think Ottinger, who wasn't brilliant in Game 4, but I feel more comfortable him not giving up a real bad goal at a bad time. Right? You're going to have to beat him. You're going to have to beat him. Whereas Stu has had some moments where he's looked a little shaky. I think if he gives them that baseline of just consistent quality, doesn't have to be Shesterkin-like, but just consistent. That, to me, gives Edmonton a brilliant chance. And then it cuts both ways. Like, the power play on both sides has not scored a goal. Now, you'd think the Oilers would be more dependent on their power play than the Stars because the Oilers, are so good at it and their top guys pile up points there. So I guess whichever power play can solve the other team's penalty kill better. Now, watching the games, it seems like Edmonton is a lot closer to scoring on the power play than Dallas. Like, they create chances. The McDavid, the stick behind the goal and everything else. Like, they had chances on that power play. And the other thing is, the Oilers only had 6 attempts on the power play through 4 games. That's not a lot of, you probably want 3 a game, right? 12. So can the Oilers draw more penalties and eventually score on the power play in tight games and a tight series coming down to the wire? That might be the difference.
And with a guy like Tanev out too, and getting those shots to the net and getting them on target might make a difference as well.
Also, Mike, drawing more penalties with Tanev out, right?
Yeah.
Like you get other guys chasing out of position. That's when you take penalties because they're not quite as good at defending.
Yeah, it's really not just you take off a forward and you're looking at point production or whatever. But this guy, this is a real domino effect, or could be a real domino effect tonight. But I guess we'll see more when you're leaving the airport in town in a boot. Nothing official yet, but we'll just wait on that. One more for you, and we'll head out east here, Mike. Panthers, Rangers, of course. Florida escaping MSG with a win last night, holding on, taking this thing back to Sunrise. They need a win to get into the Cup final. What did you make of last night? And are the Rangers done, or does this thing still stretch out a little more?
I think the Rangers are going to lose the series. I think they probably lose it next game. The Rangers played awesome in the first period. They sort of played the way the Panthers played for 20 minutes. This is the rub. They're just not as good, and no teams are as good as doing it the way Florida does it consistently. Like, they're uniquely that way, the way they pressure, the way they forecheck. And it was a close game. Shesterkin was very good. Bobrovsky was very good. But as every game goes on, Florida just leans on you, grinds you, and squeezes you, and they take over. And so unless the Rangers start scoring on the power play, like they did a lot during the season, which they haven't done, unless they start, Shesterkin plays out of his mind, it feels like the Panthers are just a little bit better at the style this series is going. And, we have conversations, and I read a lot about, they got to get more engaged. They got to want it more. It's not about wanting it more. The Rangers want it as much as you can want it. All the teams want it the same, as much as you can humanly want it. Sometimes matchups, the opposition, make it really hard for Mika Zibanejad to look as good as he can. It's not because he's not trying, because he's playing against Barkov. That's what the problem is. He's not as good as that guy, no matter how hard he tries. So I think this is the issue why everyone thought Florida was a real threat to get to the Cup final again and maybe win it. Right now I have them. I had Edmonton and Florida in the final before. I had Edmonton before the season to win it. I had Florida before the playoffs to win it. And, I feel pretty good about certainly Florida getting there. And if they get there, I think they'll be the favorite against whoever they play against.
Well, Mike, we welcome you back to the continent, and enjoy tonight and the rest of your weekend and the rest of the Stanley Cup Conference Finals, I guess, right now. We'll talk to you next week.
Next week, we'll talk to you from the morning of Game 1 from wherever it's going to be. So we will see you then.
Love it. There's Mike Johnson, TSN hockey analyst. Love him all around the world. He's international, this guy, global phenomenon, Mystic Mike. But we appreciate his time. Brought to you, as always, by Pro-Am Sports. Gear up for game day. That's today. Head over to Pro-Am Sports. Maybe deck yourself out in something new. Treat yourself. It's a Friday. It's Game 5. Why not? Oilers Adidas jersey with on-ice name and number sewing. You can check them out today. Pro-Am Sports, 128th Avenue, St. Albert Trail, or online, proamsports.ca. Make it easy for yourself. You can shop at home or from your work, wherever it is. But check out Pro-Am Sports for some good deals and some good Oilers gear for tonight's Game 5.